Okay, now we're going to take a look at some control structures in Python that are known as loops, and these are things that are actually in most programming languages. In particular, we're going to look at the while and for loops. We'll do while loops first. Before we did loops, you just kind of had code which, again, you know, we would have a sort of situation where you put in an input up here, and then it just sort of flows down through a bunch of if or else, or, you know, times a number times 5 or something. Then eventually an output would happen. And the code was very linear, and as you fell, there was no way to go back up to the top or do things multiple times. To push the annoying pinball analogy, it was kind of like these would be the flippers that would push the ball back up. And we don't have those right now, and we're going to add them through the idea of loops. And what a loop is a piece of code, a code structure, right, where you do something again and again and again. So in Python, again, as we've been learning, usually things like we express code within a certain structure by an indent. So a loop is going to have some sort of condition up here. Actually, let's not call it that. So let's look first at what a while loop is. A while loop. And a while loop is going to be while some condition is true, keep doing the code that's within it. All right, and this is very similar to an if statement or an else statement or an elif statement, except where before an if would be, if some condition is true, do here. A while loop is one step beyond it. It's basically saying, okay, while this is true, keep doing it. So it's actually going to run through and then evaluate, is this true, and then go back to the top, and then go, and then go, and then go. Okay? So good to keep in mind while we're doing this. So how would we actually implement a while loop? So let's go over to our Python. All right, so let's do a while loop. Let's do a thing where we have a variable. Let's call it count. All right, and let's say it's equal to 0. And we're going to do while count is less than 10. We are going to print hello. Actually, let's print count so we can get a better idea of what's going on. And then afterwards, we're going to count equals count plus 1, which we also know we can do just by doing count plus equal 1. Okay? So if we were to save this code and then run it, what do we get? Okay, so you can see in the readout we have 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. Okay, all the way up through 9. So how did that work? Count started at 0. We went into the loop. It evaluated. It said, okay, is count less than 10? It is. Print count, increase count. And it kept doing it, kept doing it, kept doing it until count was increased to 10, at which point 10 was no longer less than 10, right? And then it breaks, and then the code is done. So while loops, a lot of time, like this is a weird while loop, and you'll actually, when we see for loops, you'll see that you actually probably would write this rather in something known as a for loop, but like what you were doing here. But while loops are generally done whenever we don't know when the input, or when we don't know how long a loop will run. Basically, if we want to do something until some sort of outside force changes it. So maybe another more appropriate example, rather than this one where we kind of, you could argue, we know we're only going to loop it 10 times, would be something with maybe a user input. So what we're going to do is use a textual input, basically a typed input. So we will do, let's have a name, okay? So name equals none, let's say, okay? And what we're going to do is we're going to do while name is not equal to exit, all right? We're going to do input, let's actually do name equals input, and then we're going to say please enter your name. Cool. Then we're going to do print hello name, and then we'll go over each of these lines in a second. And then, so it, yeah, we'll leave it at that. Actually, does that look right? Okay, so what is this code going to do? So it's going to start out, it's going to have some variable called name. All right, and we just say it's empty. Then what we're doing is we're saying, okay, while name is not equal to the string exit, we're going to ask for a name. You type it in, it's assigned to the variable name, then we print that, and then we restart. So what would this look like when we run it? going to say, please enter your name. I'm going to enter my name, Joe. Okay, hello, Joe. Please enter your name. I don't know, 45. Hello, 45. Okay, please enter your name. Now let's type in this, exit. Okay, hello, exit. And then, do you see how it's done? Actually, it's not running anymore. Interesting. Okay, so this should have taught like a whole bunch of things, actually. One thing is we can get user-typed input by doing this thing known as the input function right here. So what it does is you say input, and then inside of it you put a string which is sort of like your prompt. Okay, so you can see it said please enter name. I typed Joe, and then it basically takes in that Joe, puts it into a string, and then we can do whatever we want with it. So you can see I just printed hello, comma, space, plus name. So this is string concatenation, which we learned about in lab 1 earlier. Okay, and it just keeps doing it and doing it and doing it until we type in sort of an exit phrase, which is capital EXIT, at which point it says hello exit and then just sort of breaks. Now we could probably modify this. It's sort of stupid for it to say hello exit and then break. What we should do is maybe add in a little bit more complex stuff so that if you type exit, instead of printing hello exit, it just immediately breaks, or maybe send some sort of closing message. Okay, so why don't we do that by doing if name is not equal to exit, then we'll print name, else print exiting. Yeah, exiting name loop program thing. Okay, so what's this code going to do? So similar to before, it'll take in names, but in that final case, whenever we type exit, it's going to go into not this part where we're printing the name, because name at that point will equal exit. It will instead go here and say print, or it'll exiting name loop program thing, and then be done. So if we run it, okay, please enter your name, Joe, I don't know, Mary. Okay, cool. Exit, exiting name loop program thing. Okay, and all done. Life's good. Now, one more thing to think about with while loops. This is actually a really good use for while loops, right? Like, because this program, we could run this forever, right? If maybe you have like, lots of weird names and you just keep typing them, right? Like, we don't know when the program was going to end, but now it ends, okay? There's another loop which we'll talk about in a video soon, which is called a for loop, and that's more when you know exactly ahead of time how many loops you want to do, perhaps.